Today is called the Feast of St. Crispin. He that outlives this day and comes safe home will stand a tiptoe when this day is named, and rouse him at the name of Crispin. He that shall live this day and see old age will yearly on the vigil feast his neighbors and say, "Tomorrow is St. Crispin." Then he will strip his sleeve and show his scars and say, "These wounds I had on Crispin's day." Old men forget, yet all shall be forgot, but he'll remember with advantages what feats he did that day. Then shall our names, familiar in his mouth as household words, Harry the King, Bedford and Exeter, Warwick and Talbot, Salisbury and Gloucester, be in their flowing cups fleshly remembered. This story shall the good man teach his son, and Crispin shall ne'er go by from this day till the ending of the world. But we in it shall be remembered, we few, we happy few, we band of brothers. For he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother, be he ne'er so vile, this day shall gentle his condition. And gentlemen in England now abed shall think themselves accursed they were not here, and hold their manhoods cheap, whilst any speaks that fought with us upon St. Crispin's day. Okay, yes, that was cheesy. I'm sorry. But you cannot think of the Battle of Agincourt or Henry V without thinking of Shakespeare, and specifically the St. Crispin's Day speech. I mean, that speech gets a lot of hype. You've probably heard of Band of Brothers before. That's where it comes from. It's iconic. It is Shakespeare at his absolute best. And Shakespeare had a lot to live up to when he wrote about the Battle of Agincourt. The English were outnumbered 5-1. And for the longest time, I really did not understand how they won that battle. But it had something to do with, and Cornwell explains it really well in his book too, it had something to do with the field and the fact that it was very narrow, so the French got really bunched up. And as they started dying, they just piled on top of each other and had to climb, and they were just perfect pickings for the archers. Or the longbowmen. So this is going to be the first dedicated book review I've done, at least in long form, since Dreams of the Dying. That was a year and a half ago. I don't make many of these, but I loved this book so much, it's honestly a new favorite. Because I am so obsessed with Shakespeare, because I do love Shakespeare so much. How the hell is Bernard Cornwell, who's a brilliant writer, yes, but how is any writer gonna live up to Shakespeare? And oh my god, Cornwell does. Before we talk about this book, we have to talk about Henry V and how Henry V works, because this book follows the exact same structure as the play. It is as if Cornwell just plucked an extra off stage and decided to tell that extra story. Well, the story is brilliant, but it does follow the same plot structure. So, the Dauphin insults Henry V. We do get a little bit before that, since Henry does make an appearance in this, but it's not his story. It's the story of one of the random longbowmen. So, the Battle of Saxon, I can't say that word, I'm sorry, takes place, and we meet our protagonist, Nick Hook, amazing protagonist. The Dauphin insults Henry VIII, and the Lancastrian phase of the 100 Years' War kicks off. We go to Harfleur. They win the siege there. There's a big portion of the book that takes place at Harfleur, and it doesn't take up very much space, at least the actual battle in Shakespeare's play. There's a lot of plotting behind the battle, but it's not a huge battle scene. That is where "once more into the breach, dear friends, once more close the door off with our English dead." I don't know, that's not really my favorite line, but that's a line that everybody knows. That happens at Harfleur, and they win the siege. But during that siege, everyone gets sick, and By the time they make their way to Agincourt trying to get to Calais, they're stopped by the French. They are outnumbered 5-1. They are sick. They're dropping like flies. Henry knows they're going to have to battle. He gets up there. He gives a St. Crispin's Day speech, and St. Crispin's Day is October 14th, day after my birthday. Rallies the troops, and it goes disastrously for the French. I think it was more of a just disaster for the French than it was like a really big victory for England. It was just this perfect literal soup because it was so muddy that just led to the French's demise. And the English were definitely at an advantage with their longbowmen. So they win the battle. They go home to England. Henry gets married. The Lancastrian phase fiddles out for a little bit. In this book, we follow the archer Nicholas Hook. Nicholas Hook is a bastard of a minor lord. But what makes him special is that he hears voices. He hears the voices of St. Crispin and St. Crispian. This has incredible mental health rep. So incredible. Because he's psychotic. He's hearing voices. And that plays a major role in the story. But it's not like... It's not done rudely. It is so tasteful. And while it doesn't impact the plot so much, they're not what's called command hallucinations, which are telling him to do things. They're like, you can do it, or do this for me. And so what I described this book as him taking an extra out of the play and telling the extra story, it's basically as if we are in the play and we are this extra, Nick Hook, watching the play go by. If you have not read or seen Henry V, wait to read this book. You need to either read it or watch one of the adaptations. There have been several. I know the Kenneth Branagh one is on Amazon. I don't really like the chorus in that one. I prefer the chorus in The Hollow Crown. But I don't think Tom Hiddleston did a very good job just with Shakespeare. I don't think his acting style, he's just too much. He's too realistic to pull off Shakespeare, especially in a film form. The 2012, if you can get a hand up on the Globe 2012 production of Henry V, that one's great. The original performance by Laurence Olivier is great, and Laurence Olivier was amazing at Shakespeare. I do believe Henry V actually deserves the hype it gets. I believe that the only reason Richard III is held in such high esteem is because of Laurence Olivier's performance in the movie. But his performance as Henry VIII Henry V is really, really good, and he looks cute as hell in that bowl cut. So does Timothée Chalamet. And this book. This is chivalry at its finest. Nick Hook is such a chivalrous man. He takes in a French nun who's a bastard of a lord, and we actually get the father-daughter relationship with her, which is amazing. And he protects her. He protects his friends. And it follows each plot point from Henry V, from the opening to Harfleur, to hanging a thief on the road, to Henry hiding as a Welshman to see what his longbow soldiers think of him, to the St. Crispin's Day speech that appears in here. Obviously, it's not Shakespeare, but it is really inspiring. It's a good battle speech. To St. Crispin's Day speech, to the battle. Now, it does take a while for us to actually get to the battle. So for a book called Agincourt only takes up about 100 pages in this book. It's kind of like that movie with Mel Gibson, Gallipoli, where it's not really about the battle, it's about the loss of innocence of the little soldiers. It's a really good movie. I know he's crazy, Mel Gibson, but I could see why people liked him before he went crazy, because that's a really good movie. And I really kind of wish this would be adapted, but it would be too much like The King from Netflix, sort of, whereas it's like a modern retelling, or I'm not even going to call this retelling, guys, this is Shakespeare fanfiction, and it is fanfiction at its finest. I didn't write a script out from this review because I'm still reeling because it was so fucking amazing. Guys, read Agincourt, read Shakespeare fanfiction, 5 stars. All I can say. 5 stars. I am gushing over this. So my next Cornwell read is going to be either Enemy of God, which is book 2 in the Warlord Chronicles, or it's going to be Stonehenge, which is another standalone. I know he's really big on series. I need to read the Sharpe series, but he can nail a standalone. There was a plot point that was not fully wrapped up in here, which almost made me want to knock it down like a 1/4 of a star, but I was like, no, I just enjoyed it too much that I just can't do it. So, highly recommend, especially if you are a Shakespeare nut like I am. So that's it, guys. Keep reading, keep writing, keep loving words, read some more historical fiction, and I'll see you next time. Bye!